Okay, so it
Hey
looks like
y'all.
I'm live
Okay,
now.
so hey y'all.
So I'm Alexis from Opyn, and I'm going to be talking about DeFi risk management. So DeFi is incredible, and it's enabled a ton of financial innovation that I know a lot of us are super excited about. But at the same time, there are a number of risks in DeFi that we need to be aware of and also figure out how to mitigate. So that's kind of what we'll be talking about today. So what are some of these DeFi risks? We've got kind of a lot. We're looking at ETH volatility, inter-protocol risk, admin key risk, financial risks, hacks, smart contract vulnerabilities. The list goes on. There are a lot. So how do we go about mitigating these risks? Well, there are a couple of different things that we can do. The first thing is that we need to be aware of these risks. As products and projects, it's our responsibility to convey these risks, whether technical, financial, or otherwise, to our users to help educate them and help them understand. As users of these products, it's important for us to learn about these products, to become educated, to be optimistic about this innovation, but also cautious about where we're putting large sums of our money. So, and then the number two, the other aspect of risk mitigation is using risk mitigation tools. And today I'll be focusing on one of these tools, which are protective put options. So what is a protective put option? A protective put option is an instrument that gives you the right, but not the obligation to sell an asset at a given price, which we call the strike price, by a certain date, which is the expiry date. So that's kind of a mouthful of a definition. So let's break it down with an example. So say ETH price is currently at $200, and I'm worried about ETH downside, volatility, and flash crashes. Then what I can do is buy one of these protective put options, which says that if ETH price falls below $180 before June 7th, I can still sell my ETH for $180. So what does this mean? Going back to what we talked about, ETH price, say ETH price is $200 today, and then I wake up tomorrow morning and ETH price is $140 or $100, then that's a ton of value that I would have lost. But if I hold this protective put option, then even if the market price of ETH tomorrow is below 180, at 140, at 100, whichever, I can still sell that ETH for $180. So I'm able to protect myself against these drawdowns in ETH price. And these different put options have different expiry dates. So in this case, I'd have this ability up until June 7th. So let's go ahead and kind of map this back to the definition we were talking about earlier. So the asset that we're protecting is ETH. The strike price is $180. So if ETH price falls to 180 or below, that's when I would use this option. June 7th is my expiry date, so I can use this until June 7th, and I have the choice to sell my ETH for $180, which is that right, not obligation. So in the example we talked about what if ETH falls from 200 to 140 and it's more profitable for me to sell it for 180. But I could equally wake up tomorrow morning and ETH price could be $250. And then I'd want to sell my ETH for $250, which I could do because I'm not obligated to sell my ETH for 180 if I hold this option. Rather, I can choose to if that's helpful to me. Okay, so now that we know what a protective put option is, how do we actually go about acquiring one of these? How does this process work in DeFi? So the first thing that I would do is, as someone looking for protection, I would pay a premium to purchase this protective put option, and this premium would go to a pool of protection sellers. In return for giving these protection sellers a premium, I would be protected in the form of this protective put option. And so with Opyn, this protective put option is something called an O token, which is a fungible ERC20 token, which gives me this protection. So what I'm essentially doing here is paying this protection seller to offload some of my risk. They're taking on some of that risk for a premium, and I get protected. So then what happens if ETH falls in price? Well, there are a couple of different choices that we have. So the first thing we can do is exercise. And this is actually what we just talked about previously, where, in the example we saw ETH falling to, we were talking about ETH at 200 and then falling to, 140 or $100, and me using this option to sell ETH for 180. That's what we call exercise, which is when we give up our options in our ETH and we get in return the strike price amount of USDC. So you always have that ability when you hold this option to be able to exercise it. Now, the other thing I could actually do is sell the option itself. So remember that the option in this case is a fungible ERC20 token. So that means I can buy and sell it just like any other asset. So I can take this O token, I can go to an exchange, and I can sell it to receive a premium. So if the premium that I'm getting when I sell it to this exchange is higher than the premium that I paid for the O token initially, then I'm making a profit. And so this is another way for me to be able to use this put option. And if you want to learn more about kind of the pros and cons of selling versus exercising, and what scenarios, which action makes more sense, you can check out this link here at tiny.cc/seller exercise. Okay, so now you might be wondering, what about selling protection? Who are these people on the other side of the equation who are taking on this risk? And how do they do it? So here's what happens. These protection sellers take some USDC collateral and they put it into a vault to mint O tokens. So this is kind of similar to in the maker system where I can put collateral down into a vault and I can mint DAI. So here, these protection sellers are minting these O tokens, these option tokens. And then what they're doing is they're selling them to a pool of buyers on an exchange and earning a premium. So they're taking on this risk in return for this premium. So as a protection seller, you have to be comfortable with the risk that if ETH does hit that strike price, you would potentially have to give up all of your USDC collateral if a buyer exercises. So that's definitely the risk that these protection sellers are taking on. However, when these buyers exercise, the protection sellers do get the buyer's ETH in return. So why would people want to do this? Well, they might be comfortable taking on this kind of risk to earn a premium. They might also be looking to receive ETH at a lower price and kind of not mind if they're exercised on. But it's important to be aware that when you are selling protection, you are taking on risk and you're being paid to do so. So how are these protective put options useful in DeFi? So what we've talked about so far are kind of these ETH put options. So these put options protecting ETH collateralized with USDC. And we've talked a little bit about how this can be helpful to protect against volatility, flash crashes, and provide this ETH downside protection. So for example, in kind of a Black Thursday-like scenario, if you're an ETH holder and you're experiencing this kind of extreme volatility, this put option would give you the ability to recoup USDC for your ETH if you weren't comfortable with that volatility. So speaking of Black Thursday, another instrument that could have been really helpful in that scenario is an ETH DAI option. And so with an ETH DAI option, you're protecting ETH, but you have DAI as the collateral asset that these protection sellers are putting down. So both ETH and DAI, both USDC and DAI are stablecoins. And so the ETH DAI options could also help with this downside protection, volatility, and flash crashes but you also would be taking on some DAI risk. And where it becomes really useful to have ETH DAI options is actually to unlock DAI liquidity. So remember, when you exercise an option, you receive what the protection seller locked up as collateral. So if the protection seller locked up DAI as collateral, that means that you receive DAI when you exercise. So these ETH DAI options allow there to be this DAI locked up in this protective asset that can be unlocked by exercising in the case that people are looking for that. And so this could be helpful for CDP owners who are trying to protect themselves from liquidation, or market makers in the ETH DAI ecosystem who want a specific hedge. This can also be used as insurance for DeFi projects, actually. And this can provide protection against technical and financial risk, immediate claim payouts, and trustless claim and risk assessment. And so now, how does that work? So let's go through an example. Let's use Compound as an example. So say that I go to Compound. I have some maybe DAI. I go to Compound. I put that DAI on Compound. Then in return, I get CDAI. And CDAI basically gives me the right to come back to Compound at any point, give Compound my CDAI, and take my DAI out in return. Now, what if there is some sort of adverse event that affects Compound, whether that's a technical risk like a hack or a financial risk like a liquidity crisis? Then what I can do is, if I was kind of scared of those risks, I could come to a platform like Opyn or another options platform, and I could go ahead and buy a put option on CDAI. And so what this would allow me to do is, if there was some adverse event that affected Compound, I could go ahead and give up my CDAI and my O tokens and receive collateral that a protection seller had put down in return. So in this case, if there's anything that causes the price of this C token to go down, whether that's a technical or financial risk, I can exercise this protective put option. So that's where you kind of see protection against a number of risks, technical and financial, immediate claim payouts. I'm not waiting for someone to come and assess the claim, say that something happened. Because this is an option, I can exercise it whenever I want. And so this is another really cool area where these protective put options can be helpful in DeFi. So what else is possible? The cool thing is that options are really versatile instruments. With them, you can hedge ETH, you can hedge Bitcoin on Ethereum with TBTC or WBTC, any ERC20 on Ethereum, you can now hedge with these options. You can build insurance markets like we talked about. You can actually develop volatility oracles. You can use advanced strategies like spreads, strangles, or straddles for other kinds of protection. And a really cool thing is that with just put and call options, you can construct any financial payoff in existence. So these are incredibly versatile instruments, and we're only just starting to scratch the surface of what's possible with them. So if you're excited about building with options, you can check out tiny.cc/biddle and learn a lot more about what else is possible and what you can build to enable a safer and more secure DeFi. So how do you get started? You can check out opyn.co. If you have additional questions, you can go to tiny.cc/open discord, and more than happy to answer or discuss. And then you can find us on Twitter at Opyn and me at Alexis Gauba. So hope this was useful and that you learned a little bit about DeFi risk management. Yeah, thanks for taking the time, and enjoy the rest of Ethereal Summit.